All right. My opponents have said that the death penalty deters crime and, well, actually that's all they said really, but I disagree. All the death penalty really does to help families is to distract them from remembering their loved one. My teammates have said the death penalty does not deter crime. It only distracts the families from remembering a loved one, and the death penalty can be botched or take a very long time, causing pain to the person being executed. All right, I'm going to take a quick poll. Who here supports the death penalty? All right. Now who here likes money? That's what I thought. Now, I'm guessing, since most of you raised your hand, that most of you probably actually don't like the death penalty, because the death penalty is far too expensive to continue to administer. The California Commission on the Fair Administration of Justice says that a state with death penalty can pay up to $137 million, and a state without death penalty could pay only $11.5 million. This is significant because states could spend $137 million or $11.5 million. That's a pretty significant difference that governments could be spending on other things such as roads or the police force. Furthermore, a 2008 study of Maryland's death penalty costs to another shocking result. For prosecution of a death-eligible defendant, costs reach up to $1.8 million. Total costs of execution can reach up to more than $3 million. This statistic is irrefutable evidence that the death penalty is too expensive, because if states are spending $3 million per execution, imagine how much money is spent in just 1 year. Lastly, a 2003 study in Tennessee showed that death penalty trials are 48% more expensive than life imprisonment trials. The most logical conclusion we can draw from this evidence is that the death penalty is far too expensive to continue to administer, because death penalty trials cost way more. As undoubtedly seen, if cost is a worry, the death penalty no longer makes any sense. Spelled with a C and a T in it. Just think about it.
My opponent may say that the cost of capital punishment is more than a lifetime in prison, but we disagree. The cost of capital punishment is less than time spent in prison. In the article, studies confirm death penalty deters many murderers at a far less cost. The author states, the cost of housing an inmate and regulatory costs for every person just in New York by itself costs up to $60,000, which is higher than the amount spent on capital punishment. The public is willing to pay $4 million to $10 million in regulatory costs for each life spared. The most logical conclusion we can draw from this evidence is that when the public pays $4 million when we spare the lives of killers, we are spending that money on prisoners who are never going to leave prison, when we could have been spending it on helping our economy. Therefore, even though my opponent may say that the cost of capital punishment is more than a lifetime in prison, the cost of capital punishment is much less.
Capital punishment has been debated upon for many years regarding whether it is correct and the rightful thing to do, or if it is considered inhumane and unconstitutional. What most people don't realize is that the pros outweigh the cons. It can be clearly shown that capital punishment can deter crime by daunting criminals with death, cost less by housing fewer inmates. It is federally approved. However, the most valued reason for executions is to provide closure for families with victims of murder. The people who should be worried the most about a criminal getting executed is their family, but in most cases, the family files for execution, whether it happens or not. This type of thing has been happening for decades and is recently being viewed from an opposing perspective. Back in 1973, Gary Gilmore shot and killed 2 workers during a robbery. Both of Gilmore's victims had widows, and in a tragic coincidence, each had another toddler on the way. And both of those widows told the jury they wanted Gilmore to die. In 1977, Gilmore was executed by firing squad, the most negatively viewed form of execution, at his own request. The execution was a major impact on capital punishment because it shows that the families of victims wish for execution and would like to see them come to an end. Again, in 1993, 17-year-old Nathan Dunlap entered a Chuck E. Cheese and shot 4 teenage workers that had been cleaning up after a child's birthday party. Years later, Dunlap still awaits his fate on death row. One of the victim's fathers told CNN, Nathan Dunlap does not deserve life in prison. He deserves to die. Families across the USA, China, and many other worldwide nations that have experienced murder are for the death penalty. Other people with no experience of such tragic crimes think that it is inhumane. In Dallas, 1963, President John Fitzgerald Kennedy was assassinated by Lee Harvey Oswald. Less than a year later, Jack Ruby, a supporter of JFK, hunts down Lee Harvey Oswald and murders him personally. This was crucial to the debate upon capital punishment because it proves that when someone is murdered, families and friends may try to take the matter into their own hands, tracking the problem even further, endangering more human lives. All in all, it's clearly expressed that capital punishment raises the dark clouds from families across the USA and many other nations that are in need that have experienced murder. Therefore, capital punishment should be used in order to have the families avenge their fallen relative or friend.
I thought I already argued all these points, but first of all, my opponent may say that there was an incident where 2 robbers were shot and from self-defense, and so they killed the man defending himself, but I don't think that's very just because, again, we're killing people just for killing, and vengeance really isn't the answer when it only leads to more death when you kill them. And these criminals don't think about their consequences. My opponent may say criminals are deserving of death for killing people premeditated, but most murderers are too unstable to rationally think about their consequences, like being under the influence of drugs, being mentally unstable, or under the influence of alcohol. In fact, according to the Treatment Advocacy Center in 2012, 1,400 people were killed by mentally unstable criminals, illustrating that something as simple as prescription treatment can stop crimes deserving of injecting a death serum into a suspect who might not even know what's going on. Also, my opponent may say the death penalty is perfectly just for the crimes committed because you're killing someone who's convicted. But according to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary of 1994, the definition of murder is, quote, the crime of unlawfully killing a person, especially with malice aforethought, quote, which means to kill another person with the intent to punish, which in itself is also the definition of the death penalty. The federal government decides to kill convicted men and women feel that these people deserve punishment. But why do we rank ourselves higher when we share just as much blood as the murderer? If America is killing these people, then aren't we murderers, along with being hypocrites? Gandhi quotes, an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. I feel this is relevant because if we're killing people for killing, then aren't we becoming blind to the lessons and morals we're teaching our future? Therefore, even though the death penalty is prevalent in some states, it's teaching the youth across America, and especially in these select states, that revenge and killing is an appropriate form of punishment and always should be. But if we as a nation do not refute this idea, then how can we ever progress? How can we change from being a country built on revenge and hatred